Kendo Rant. Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to today's Kendo Rant. Let's get right into the questions. Okay, first one says, on your point about students listening to your advice, and if they don't listen to you, won't give much advice, I currently have the issue where I've been told that I don't listen, so I don't get any feedback. I believe that I've been listening wholeheartedly. What can be done in a situation where advice has been given and maybe it was misunderstood, which leads to the sensei believing that the student doesn't listen? Okay, so this is a bit of a tough one. Obviously, this is in response to the video that I last posted where somebody was having trouble with people in their dojo, obviously kind of respecting their authority, for want of a better term, and not really listening to the advice that they were being given. Basically, and what I said in that was, if I generally give people two chances, if I feel like they're not listening to me or they're ignoring me with this sort of advice that I give them, then I'll give them a second chance. I'll give it them twice, and after the second time, if I still feel like they're ignoring it, then I just stop giving it. I don't let it bother me. I don't get upset about it. I just stop giving them the same advice because they're clearly not interested in hearing it. So, according to your question here, it sounds like you feel like your teacher or the teacher is taking that stance, even though you feel like that you are actually wholeheartedly paying attention and listening to the advice. So I obviously, this is a comment on the actual YouTube video, and I've read the whole thing and I've read some of the kind of interactions that happened after it. And it's difficult. Obviously, what I was referring to was specifically people that really obviously aren't interested in taking on the advice, all right, for a start. I'm not going to keep repeating myself to people that don't want to listen. But at the same time, I think it's quite... I think the place where lots of us get a bit stuck here or get a little bit confused is you've got to remember who holds the responsibility in this relationship, right? In terms of the teacher's role is to provide you with an environment in which you can learn, and sort of do that to the best of their ability. But what it isn't their responsibility is to make you improve. You have to improve. It's your job to improve. So as a teacher, if you're telling somebody the same advice over and over again, and it's not getting anywhere, well, you're kind of wasting your own time just repeating that same advice. There's only so many times they should have to repeat it. After that, you have to take it upon yourself to improve. And if you aren't ready for the next piece of advice, then it means that you haven't kind of done the advice that you're already given. Now, if you're in a situation here where it says where you've actually been told directly, if your teacher's actually literally told you, look, I'm not really giving you any more advice because I don't feel like you're listening to the advice you give me, that I give you, you have to realize that that's something you have to kind of turn on yourself. You have to think about why the teacher might have had that impression. What you don't want to do is start kind of saying, well, it's not my fault I don't understand. It's not my fault I don't understand what a teacher's saying. It's not really, the teacher's going to do their best to explain the advice to you, but it's your responsibility to take that advice and put it into practice. It's not their kind of... it's their responsibility to kind of keep making sure you understand. It doesn't really work like that. You have to put in, it has to come from you, that this teacher's there to provide the advice, and then you have to interpret and you have to put into practice. What I would do, I think, if I was in your situation, is I think I'd be kind of looking back at this, and I have experienced this myself. I actually absolutely have. I'd sort of try and turn it back on myself and think, okay, well, I believe that I'm listening to the advice, and I believe I'm trying to do it, but obviously there's something that's happening that makes the teacher think that I'm not doing that. So how can I change that? What am I doing wrong? Why aren't I getting it right? And maybe you have to think about it in a different way. I mean, obviously I don't know what the advice is that you've been given, but I think you have to use it as a way of looking back at yourself, as opposed to turning around to the teacher and say, well, it's your fault, you're not explaining it to me properly. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what you're saying, of course not. But what I'm saying is it's easy to fall down that kind of trap, really. So that's my sort of stance on that, if that makes sense. Next one, and this is a great question because it's kind of a little bit related to the previous one. It says, "Hey Andy, I'm kind of having an issue with a specific sensei in my dojo. He seems really mad when I can't do something, like when I'm not noticing how I lean forward when I strike, or I miss my fumikomi with the strike. I really try my best, but he keeps yelling and almost cursing at me during jigeko. It got to a point where I'm starting to avoid training with him. Do you have any tips on how to handle this? I'm wearing Borga for almost a year now, and I think the mistakes are quite common during this period, but I can't help feeling like I hit a plateau. Thanks for your thoughts on this." Okay, great. That's a brilliant question as well. But can you see how that's kind of like the opposite question to the previous one, in a funny sort of way? The previous question is saying like, what do I do when Sensei stops giving me advice? And this question is like, okay, Sensei's giving me advice, but I don't like how he's giving me the advice. So yeah, it's quite difficult, all right? Obviously, I'm not there and I'm not seeing exactly what's happening, but this kind of thing's reasonably common in Kendo. It's very common in Kendo, actually. There's lots of this kind of teaching. Probably many of my students would say that I do that as well. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I don't know about this, the kind of, you say almost cursing. I don't know what you mean by that, but if, obviously I don't condone anything like that, but the kind of yelling or very, very sort of passionate, kind of advice giving it's quite common. And the thing is, the way you've got to look at it again, is you've got to turn it back on yourself. All right. You've got to think about this and think, okay, which position would you rather be in? Would you rather be in the position that the previous question was in, where the sensei is saying, well, look, you don't listen to what I'm saying, so do you know what? Just get on with it by yourself. I'm not giving you any advice anymore. Or would you rather the sensei be giving you advice, even if it's in this sort of aggressive manner? Because what you have to realize is, and of course, again, I'm not seeing the situation, so it could be very different to how I'm imagining it. But what I'm going off is what I've seen a lot before. And part of it is because, first of all, don't forget that Kendo is a very physical, combative activity. All right, adrenaline's running high, emotions are running high. It's a very loud environment. You don't have a lot of time as a teacher to get your point across. You don't have time to stop and start giving a lecture in the middle of keiko. Yeah, you have to get the point across fast and to the point. Because if you don't, they're not going to listen properly. They're going to lose concentration. The whole thing's going to, the whole sort of flow of the keiko is going to go out of sync. So that's one of the reasons, obviously passions are running high in that situation anyway. Then you've got to remember that if the teacher is giving you information like this and he's frustrated with you that you're not doing it, he's angry that you're not able to do the things that he's asking, it's because he expects you to be able to do it. So that means he's got a kind of, what can I say? Like an expectation of your potential. He believes that you're able to do it. He believes in you, and he wants you to do better. Yeah, it's because he wants you to do better. That's why he's doing that. If he didn't care about your improvement, or he wasn't really that bothered about you getting any better, or didn't really mind if you couldn't do the fumikomi, or lean forward when you hit, then he'd probably take a more hands-off approach and just be like, okay, whatever, fine, you just do your own thing. But he's not. He's like, no, you're doing it wrong. This is how you've got to do it. And like I say, it's a common thing, and you've got to remember as well that you're far more likely to concentrate on fixing those things that he's asking you to fix when you know that that he's got that kind of teaching style. Yeah, if he's a sort of teacher that's saying, I mean, I've never seen this sort of thing, but he's a sort of teacher that's going to go, oh, sorry, just a minute. I just want to kind of let you know that your fumikomi is not quite how it should be right now. So probably you should kind of think about, I'm exaggerating now, of course, yeah. But if you're kind of doing keiko and you think, crikey, okay, if I don't get this right, he's gonna kind of tell me off again. He's going to yell at me again. So I'm really going to concentrate on getting it right. Then that's going to push you to improve more than just kind of someone that's really kind of too polite about it, if you know what I mean. So there's that. And the last thing I would say on it is just, you really have to think about this sentence here where you've said, I'm starting to avoid training with him. I really would encourage you to not do that. You have to keep training with him. part of the thing about Kendo is really overcoming barriers, overcoming things that you don't want to overcome necessarily, really pushing yourself through hard times. And I've definitely had this experience. I've really had this experience quite a lot, actually, especially when I first moved over to Japan, and I didn't really understand the language, and I was kind of, I was very naive, and I was a little bit arrogant. And I had quite a few senseis kind of knock me down a few pegs, to be honest. And I was like, at first I was like, well, why do I have to be spoken to like that? What's that about? Why is he doing that? And I kind of figured out, actually, no, it's because he kind of sees some sort of potential in what I'm doing, but he doesn't want me to go down the wrong path. So yeah, I've been there and I've experienced it. But what you've got to do is you've got to turn to it and face it, and you have to experience it that in order for you to improve. Like I say, if you're practicing with your sensei under that situation, under that pressure, that if you get it wrong, he's gonna yell at you, then you are definitely more likely to improve quicker. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Next one. Okay. I really want to take this out of my chest. Maybe it works as a question. So in February 2018, I gave my sensei the money for my borgo because he said I was ready for it. It passed a month and I didn't have any notice about the borgo. Suddenly, I received a message from my sensei saying that the borgo had arrived, but he couldn't find a way to bring it to the dojo. So it's almost been a year since my sensei ordered my borgo, but it's stuck in his house. And some colleagues say that they also ordered shinais and bokuto, but they haven't been delivered by the sensei either. So the question is, how do I deal with the sensei like this without breaking the dojo? Okay, so this is a really difficult situation. Basically, you've paid your sensei for him to provide you with the borgo. And it's been almost a year, and he still haven't got it. He says that it's arrived, it's stuck in his house for some reason, he can't get it. So what you have to do is you need to speak to him and say, okay, sensei, that's fine. I'll come and get it. And you have to arrange to come and get it from his house. If he avoids that, then potentially, then maybe there's an issue with what the money's been used on. I'm not going to speculate anything there. I don't really know, of course. This is where it becomes a little bit difficult when you're in a situation where, those sort of the sensei and the kind of equipment stuff is kind of, the lines are a little bit blurred. I try and avoid that as much as possible. I mean, of course, I supply equipment to the students at the club I teach at, but I stay very separate to the kind of organization of the dojo. So we make sure that someone else handles the money for the dojo, for example, and that anyone that deals with me with regards to equipment is purely on a kind of through KendoStar as opposed to through Andy Fisher, the Kendo teacher, if you know what I mean. I think the thing is you're going to just have to talk to him and say, look, I want to come and get it. And if he's avoiding that, then you're going to have to sort of say, look, I'm really sorry, but I paid you for this a year ago. Look, let's put it this way, right? If you'd ordered a burger from me in February 2018 and I hadn't delivered it to me yet, you'd be hitting me up on the email straight away, saying, hey, where the hell's my burger? Why haven't you sent it to me? Give me my money back, stuff like this, right? Of course you would, right? So you have to kind of say the same thing. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be impolite. But the fact is if you've paid him your money and he hasn't provided with the burger, he needs to either provide the burger or he needs to give the money back. It's one of those two things. And it sounds like it's other people in the dojo it's also affected. So it sounds like even if you have to have this conversation, it probably won't be you breaking the dojo, it's him that's kind of breaking up the dojo. And there may even be a potential for the dojo to carry on even if things fall out with that sensei, because obviously the other members are in the same position as you. So it's a very difficult thing. I do hope you get it sorted out. Hi Andy, thank you for the rant. I have a question about Aimen Uchi. So when I go for Aimen or Debana men, I try to seme by stepping in and aim at the moment when my opponent is about to move. However, my shinai is often pushed to the side when I strike, and I couldn't land clear ippon. At best, it's migi men. Is this because the timing is incorrect? Also, what do you do to take and hold the center line before and during the men strike? Great question. Okay, so you've actually sort of answered it yourself, but it's a lot more complicated than it seems. So, right. I-men, the term I-men is when you both hit men at the same time, okay? But what we're really talking about here is Debana men. Debana men is when you hit the men at the moment that they decide to hit the men. Now, where you're going wrong here is in this sentence. It's where you say, I tried to semi by stepping in and aim at the moment when my opponent is about to move. Okay? You aim to attack at the moment your opponent is about to move. That's wrong. Okay? It's not wrong. All right? It's not wrong. Maybe went a bit far, but that's why you're experiencing what you're doing. Okay, the best way to execute Debana waza, and I've got a video all about Debana waza, so definitely search that out on YouTube. But the way you want to go about your Debana waza isn't, you don't get to your cutting distance and then aim to hit when they attack. That's too late. It's too late. You have to make them attack. You have to be in control of the situation from square one, all right? So you have to step in, get to your mai, and then start applying semi and force them. You have to create a situation where your semi is going to initiate their attack. Yeah? And then you're actually already on your way to the men before they've even decided to attack. But because you're on your way to the men by applying semi and you're already sort of engaged with the actual strike, you're already in the sort of first stages of that men strike, and they're feeling under pressure. Oh no, then they're going to, if you create the situation properly, they're going to instinctively attack men out of panic. Now, it's very hard to set this up. All right, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of experience, but that is how Debana men works, really. Yeah, that's why Debana men is not about speed. It's not about that sort of thing. That's why you can see much older teachers do Debana men on really young, very competitive players as well. So what you have to think about is you have to try and create that situation. Yeah. And I think most of us have experienced it, where you feel under so much pressure, all you feel you can do, and it doesn't even process in your mind. You just kind of automatically, I don't know if it's fight or flight or whatever you want to call it, you just automatically launch a men cut because you're kind of under pressure. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, men. Yeah. That's the situation you're trying to create. Yeah, that's the situation you're trying to create. I described this the other day actually in class as we were talking about Debana men, and I made an analogy that's I talked about if you think of a pot of water on a stove that's boiling. Okay, you want to boil the water. What you don't want to do is sit and watch the stove and wait for it to boil. Yeah, if you do that, you don't know when it's going to boil. You've got no control over when it's going to boil. You have to take hold of the controls of the hob, and you have to turn it right up. And you have to put that pressure on. You have to turn that heat up so that water starts to boil, and then it boils over. That's what we're aiming for. Yeah, that feeling is that semi is you turning that knob, turning up the heat. Come on then. Pressure. And this moment, there's a very subtle moment which you'll learn to experience, yeah, and it's always different for everybody. But you have to kind of create the situation where you can get it, so that then when you press that button, your opponent's just gonna, without thinking, they're just gonna launch a men. And when you're in that situation, that's when you can start to choose your Debana waza, because you can initiate your waza before they've started to decide to go for the men. Okay, it's super tough, but it takes practice, and I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. Okay, next one. Hi Andy, just wondering if you ever had the chance to fight against a Hachidan. If so, what's the experience like, and what did you learn from it? What a fantastic question. I really love it. I've put it in because it really takes me back. I really mean this I don't mean this in a sort of patronizing way at all, but I remember thinking about this question myself when I first started out in Kendo, thinking, oh, I wonder what it's like to practice with a hachidan. I wonder what that's like, because I started kendo in a relatively small dojo in a reasonably small city in the northwest of England. We didn't have in those days the highest grade in the whole area was like 5th dan. So the concept of practicing with an 8th dan was just something else. And I remember the first time I did so. I don't remember the actual practice. I certainly don't remember the practice at all. But I remember obviously getting totally battered. But I don't. I was. It was an 8th dan that came and visited the UK, and I wasn't experienced enough really to gain from it, to be honest. But obviously then later in my life, I moved to Japan, and I was working at various kendo equipment companies, and I was very lucky to be able to practice with several 8th dans. So yeah, I've practiced a lot, a lot of 8th dans, and I've even practiced with the 9th dan actually, thinking of it. Yeah, there's a few of them left, and that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, because that kind of goes back to the previous question about the Debana waza, because he was totally in control of my kendo. He was putting pressure on me, and I think he was like 87, 88 or something at the time, and I was attacking, and I didn't know why I was attacking. I was just automatically attacking. He was forcing me to attack. And of course, I was receiving Debana men, Degote, Nukido, and all these sort of things. But in terms of 8th dans, in terms of the experience is brilliant every time I practice an 8th dan, of course. And we're very lucky actually in Europe, and I believe so in lots of other places outside of Japan as well. I know this happens quite a lot in the US, for example, Canada, and I'm sure it happens in other areas too. But we have a reasonably frequent amount of visitors from Japan that are famous 8th dan, and they're like people that you just can't practice with if you live in Japan. Just in December, I was at the European Kendo Federation seminar, and there was 3 hachidans there. And 2 of them were Hanshi. At the British Kendo Association summer seminar last August, which will be happening again this August actually, there was 3 Hanshi hachidan, and they were like superstar level Hanshi. And it was amazing to practice with those guys. But the interesting thing is they're all different. Just because they're hachidan doesn't mean they're not all factory made. They've all got their own different types of kendo, their own styles and their own teaching styles. So each experience is slightly different. It's really, really cool. And it's an excellent learning experience, an absolutely excellent learning experience. And one of the things it certainly taught me was that when I was practicing with Sensei, that it's very easy to fall into the trap of just enjoying my own ego and just trying to make strikes. And if I make a strike, even if I'm kind of bent like this or like this, and I've made this kind of weird kote, and yeah, if it was the shiai, maybe it would even be awarded the ippon. But really, it wasn't me trying to push myself to my best ability. So what I have learned, especially through practicing with high grade senseis like that, is that the way to practice with them is to throw everything you can into each and every attack with full commitment, full sutemi. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't hit, sometimes they let you hit, sometimes they do the Debana waza or the Kaishi waza. But it's really about you're facing off against yourself as much as you are against the hachidan. Okay, they really do become a mirror in some sense, because they're the ones that are kind of testing you to push yourself kind of past your own limits, and it's been a really important part of my kendo actually, and I was very lucky. Like at my last grading, was at the Paris European seminar, and there was 3 hachidans there, and practicing with them was definitely a massive thing that helped me deal with the grading. It's the actual grading test itself, because it really forced me to apply sutemi to my waza. So yeah, that was definitely it as well. So yeah, there we go. Okay, next one. I've got 3 pages. Oh no, 2 pages. I thought I had 3 pages. 2 pages. Okay. Next one. I love your Kendo rant series, and I have a possible question for it. What is a Kendoka to do when receiving directly contradictory instruction from different respected sensei? As an example, regarding small men strikes, I had one sensei correct my small men strikes, indicating that the shinai should be raised up to roughly vertical, Kensen pointing at the ceiling, with a very small. Where are we? I've lost my place in the thing. Very small shoulder elbow rise. Okay, sorry about that. Before bringing the shinai down to strike with mostly a wrist snap. Okay, so we're talking about bringing the shinai almost vertical and a kind of a large small men, for want of a better term. Whereas another respected sensei later scolded me for raising the shinai tip too far back up. He wanted the shinai tip to go forwards towards the motodachi's face and be raised minimally over the motodachi's head, at which point he emphasized that using all 3 joints to snap the hip, not the hip, snap the hit, not just the wrist and grip. Then later, the first sensei corrected me again, saying I would not generate enough power just by getting over the men and swinging down such a small space. It's the most direct example of a reoccurring problem of contrary advice between respected sources. Whew, great. Okay. I think this is a great question, because I think that lots of people experience this. I know I certainly did a lot. Is you do get one teacher that says one thing and then another that seems to totally contradict it. And just like you said in there, those examples seem to be completely contradictory. So here's what you do. First off, here's what you do, right? When you're with Sensei A, you do what Sensei A says. When you're with Sensei B, you do what Sensei B says, all right? That's what you do about it. Later, as you build more experience, right? And when you're with neither of the sensei, you do when you're with neither of the sensei, you do whichever one suits you best, which one you find easiest or prefer, all right? As you build more experience and you meet more different senseis and they give you even more advice that's totally different, you take it all on board and you kind of form your own sort of idea of how this should be, right? And then it kind of develops into into something that works for you. It takes a long time, but that's the way it works, right? Because neither of those explanations of small men is wrong. Neither of them is wrong, okay? Even though they seem to contradict each other. They're just slightly different ideas around the same theme. But you can't say that one is absolutely wrong and the other one is absolutely right. They're both kind of right. They're just different. Personally, I go more towards the second type of the not raising the shinai as much, but then I think there are situations where I would practice men in that way as well. So it depends on the level of the students that you're working with. It depends on the situation of the actual strike. So what you tend to find, and what I've certainly found, is that a lot of the things that I was told, certainly around like between first dan and third dan, by lots of different senseis, that I thought, well, that's contradictory to what that guy said. That's contradictory to what that guy said. Actually, now I start to think about it more and more and start to see, actually, they didn't contradict as much as I thought they did at the time. And actually, they're kind of two sides of the same coin, or even they're just two ways of looking at the same thing. But that sort of thing will come with time and practice. For the time being, what the best thing to do with Sensei A, do what he says. With Sensei B, do what they say. And when you're not with either of them, do whichever one you prefer. All right? Next one. Hi, Andy. Question on shinai. Is there a real advantage of using thick grip shinai rather than a standard one? I do have large palms but short fingers, so I tested both, and my feeling is that the regular grip provides better control and precision, where the thick grip, despite being more comfortable on the hands, it feels sometimes hard to keep holding it properly. Meaning that I feel my grip weak during close quarter combat like tayatari. My fingers feel tired, get tired somehow. Of course, I'm afraid of otoshi, shinai otoshi, or being disarmed. but not solely because of that. The thick grip feels a little cumbersome. That does have something to do with my experience only using regular grip the majority of my Kendo life, but nevertheless, I'm trying to get used to it. Can you share your thoughts on this? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Okay. Some shinais have got thicker grips. Some shinais have got regular grips. The thicker grip ones, they tend to be around like 28 to 30 millimeters. And lots of people like them because, especially if you've got bigger hands, they're a little bit easier to grip. Also, because a lot of the bamboo is in the grip there's less of it in the actual blade part. So you'll find that they feel somewhat lighter. The kind of distribution of the bamboo, if you know what I mean. So they feel somewhat lighter for a lot of people. I know I certainly used to feel like that when I used to use them a lot. It really comes down to what kind of suits your Kendo. I personally don't use thick grip shinai so much, but I know hundreds and hundreds of people that absolutely swear by them. They're super, super popular. There's lots of very high ranked people as well that prefer to have the thicker grips. They're very, very popular in Japan, for example. Because it can be more comfortable to hold them. Some senseis even say that it encourages you to hold the shinai a little bit. How can I say, with less tension because the grip is somewhat bigger. It's not really one of those that there's a definite advantage to one or the other. It's a kind of preference, It's like, the color red doesn't have an advantage over the color blue. It's just different, different things for different situations. So the best thing to do is, obviously, if you tried them out and you didn't feel like they were for you, then stick with using the ones that you like. And you'll probably find throughout your Kendo journey that you'll start to, as your Kendo changes and evolves, the shinai that suits that will also change and evolve as well. So you might find that in a few years' time, you actually feel like a thicker grip is better. I know I certainly, maybe five or maybe a bit more actually. Time passes faster than you realize. Maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, I was like only using the thick grip shinai, and then I guess about 3 or 4 years ago I kind of stopped that, and I kind of started to prefer thinner grips, and I went to a really thin grip at one point, and then now I'm sort of back to the kind of regular size grip. I use basically our KendoStar all-purpose model for most things, and that's just a regular grip shinai. That's where I'd go with that. Okay, these next few questions are from the Kendo Show Early Access group. There's a link in the description down below. If you haven't joined that group, what are you doing? Get in the group. It's free to join, of course. It's a Facebook group where you can post your questions, where I'll answer them here on the videos. But not just that, there's loads of members of the group from all over the world of all different levels. So it generates a really great discussion. If you post a question on there, you'll get responses from people all over the world, and you get loads of different sort of feedback on the question. So it's not just you get an answer from me, you get loads of it's kind of a really nice discussion forum, really. That's the Kendo Show Early Access group. It's called the Kendo Show Early Access group because when I do make the instructional videos, and there are more coming, I promise, there are more coming, that's where they go first. They go live in that group before they go anywhere else. So if you're not in that group, you have to wait a few days before you see them. If you want to see them a few days earlier, then you need to be in that group. Okay, what are some books that you think every Kenshi should read to improve their understanding of Kendo? Well, this comes at impeccable timing. This one. The official guide for Kendo instruction. This is like everything. Okay, this is the official book on Kendo. What's in here is how it's supposed to be, because this is what the All Japan Federation say is correct. Okay, so this, you can't go wrong with this. You can't go wrong with it. Now, it says it's a guide for Kendo instruction, but the way it works is you've got like different, it'll explain different aspects of Kendo. Let's say, where are we at here? What are we looking at? So, Kihon Dosa, so basic practice, menuchi, so how to do men strike. And the first thing it does is it'll explain how to do the waza, or how to do the technique that it's talking about. And once you get through that, there's a section afterwards that talks about teaching points. So if you're a teacher as well, it gives you tips on what you should be looking for in your students and what they need to improve. So that is definitely one to pick up. Now, the reason I say it's impeccable timing is because we do sell this on KendoStar.com, but every time it goes up there, within 48 hours, it's sold out. Yeah, these sell out so unbelievably fast. However, I've taken delivery of a new batch of them today. It's the biggest delivery I've ever had of them. I'm hoping I'm going to get a week out of them. All right. I'm hoping they're going to last a whole week on the website. We'll see. All right. We'll see, because it's a big delivery, but it might just not be big enough, seeing how things go. But if you get onto the KendoStar.com website, under the accessories tab, you go to books. You can pick up that one there. It should be live by the time this video goes out. It should be, they should be on there back in stock, unless they've already sold out. All right. If they've already sold out, we'll have more on the way. All right. Because I'm constantly getting these in as much as I can. So yeah, that is one you need to get and have a look at. Another one that's worth looking at is the dictionary. Hang on, I've left it over there. Let me get it. There it is. Right. I'm back. This is definitely worth picking up and having a look at too. The Japanese to English Dictionary of Kendo. This is a really good book because it's in Japanese and in English, but you've got all the different terms that we use in Kendo, but not just the actual term. It goes into a little bit of detail about each one as well. So you can learn a lot from this. I actually had this when I was a beginner, but it was the older version. This is a newer version. So check that out. It's got diagrams and stuff as well. It's not just a load of text. It is packed full of info. And then others that you can look at that we don't sell on KendoStar, unfortunately, at the moment. I don't even know if it's still in print, actually, but one of the ones I had was Kendo, the Definitive Guide by Ozawa Hiroshi Sensei. That's an awesome book. That's a really good starter book as well. You might be able to pick that up somewhere. He's a fantastic sensei as well. Absolutely amazing sensei. He's an 8th dan actually now, and I've practiced with him too. He's absolutely wonderful. Really, really brilliant sensei. So definitely worth picking that up. So yeah, that's where I go with the books. Next one. Hi Andy, I'm quite new to Kendo. It's time to think about a spare shinai. It's hard to figure out what makes a good one. I understand the nodes on all 4 staves should line up with each other, and each stave as long as the others. Madake also gives a firmer feel. What other things should I look for? Would it help if all the staves come from the same plant? Okay, so when you say you're quite new to Kendo, you're looking at your kind of second shinai. There's lots of different shinai out there. You've got Dobari, Jissengata. They're like a shinai that's weighted specifically for tournaments. You've got Kotogata, which are like a kind of evenly distributed weight. And there's loads of different ones. You've got Madake, you've got oval grips, you've got stuff like this. To be honest, if you're still just starting out, you're just getting your second shinai, I wouldn't go too kind of fancy. You don't need anything special or flashy. Something like the KendoStar all-purpose shinai, if I can plug another product. Now, the KendoStar all-purpose shinai is a great choice, to be honest, because it's great for someone of your level, and it's great for higher levels as well. But as I say, I use it. The good thing about that is it's not it's a great balance, but it's not like an overly Dobari type shinai, so it doesn't have the tip shaved too thin, so there's still a nice bit of durability in there. If you go on the website and read some of the reviews, it'll tell you all about it, because it's a really well-reviewed shinai too. It is Madake, which again, yes, indeed, it does have a firmer feel, whereas Keichiku, which is the other type of bamboo, is a little bit more flexible. But again, it's not something you need to super worry about at this stage. That's something that you can start to really be a bit more fussy about later on in your Kendo career. For the time being, I don't think you need to worry too much about it. About the nodes on the shinai, basically the way that works is they are from when obviously they make the bamboo from the plant, the trunk as it were. or the log, whatever you want to call it, and it's got those ridges on it. They're the sort of remnants of that. It is better if the shinai, all 4 staves come from the same plant. All the shinai on KendoStar certainly do. For the most part, most shinai do these days, to be honest. In terms of them lining up, it depends how precise you want to get with that. They shouldn't be like massively out of line with each other. It is better for them to be roughly kind of similarly placed. It's quite rare that you'll get them super precision in the same place. It doesn't have to be that precise. Even though they come from the same plant, that can happen. That sort of variance. That's because from one plant, they actually make several shinai. And they'll take several staves from that. And because of the way the bamboo is, obviously it's a natural thing. The rings don't always grow perfectly horizontal. Yeah, they're sometimes a little bit skewed or whatever. So that's why that happens. Obviously, it's an organic material. So that's what I'd say with that. So yeah, I wouldn't be too fussy about it, to be honest. Something like the KendoStar all-purpose shinai is a great choice. Okay. Last one. Hi Andy, I often hear senpai criticize one dojo or venue as having a bad floor. In your experience, what makes a good or bad kendo floor? Okay, so yeah, you definitely hear that a lot. Because obviously in kendo, we practice kendo barefoot on a wooden floor, and we stamp on the floor. So the floor that we use in the hall is obviously quite important. And this is something that many people in Japan that come over here, Japanese people that come over here, don't quite realize straight away, and are often quite surprised about, because in Japan they have really beautiful dojos with beautiful floors, or even their regular sports hall, like the school sports hall, because they know it will be used for like kendo or something like that. They're kind of a nice sprung wooden floor. You don't have these floors that are like concrete floors with like a rubber covering or something like that sometimes you see over here. So when someone's saying, oh, well, this is a good floor, what they mean is it's got a nice spring to it. It's not too hard, but it doesn't want to be too soft either. It doesn't want to be like a trampoline. But yeah, it's not too hard. Probably if it's wooden, generally wooden floors are the most preferable, and it's got a nice, the boards are nicely aligned so they're not sticking up, and you've not got sort of metal bits sticking out and stuff. And obviously it provides decent grip. Maybe it's got a nice varnish on it. Or a bad floor would be one that would be very, very hard. Like I say, just concrete with either like laminate flooring over the top, or like a rubber coating over the top, which you see. Those floors are much less desirable for kendo. Obviously, hard ones can be dangerous even. And obviously ones that then you've got to worry about the grip as well. So if they've got too much grip, it's not really quite good, because you can't do the good suriashi. But if it hasn't got enough grip, then you can't do the fumikiri. So it's we can be a little bit fussy about the quality of the floor in kendo, and I think that's what your senpais are actually talking about. Okay, so that's all the questions done. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like me to rant about next time. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, hope I wasn't too what was it I was described as on Reddit? Overly energetic or something like that. I can't remember. I don't know. That's just how I am. But anyway, don't forget, do all the likes, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And do your shopping at KendoStar.com. I've already plugged loads of the products from KendoStar already. But get to KendoStar.com. Obviously, I run that website. It's a fantastic equipment website. We've got some brilliant deals for January. Awesome stuff on the Kendo uniforms. The Borga sets, the Vanguard and the Shinobu Borga set come with a free Budo Wing Borga bag, which is awesome, like backpack type Borga bag, so you can save some money there. Get to KendoStar.com. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.